Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking to you here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. And we finally come to that moment, the moment I've been waiting for 3 years, to get to my favorite album of all time. And hopefully you guys have been waiting, anticipating this moment to get to reveal what is my favorite album of all time. No surprise, it's going to be from my favorite band. You can probably guess that. I heard some people say it's going to be Abbey Road's, it's going to be Sgt. Pepper's. No, if you pay attention to my channel, I've already talked about some of those albums. The one Beatles album I haven't talked about yet is this one. That is Revolver. Yes, Revolver, my favorite album of all time. Obviously my favorite Beatles album. Yeah, my top 3 are Beatles albums: Help, Rubber Soul, and Revolver, which all come right in a row. 65 and 66. Yeah, absolutely. Some of the most amazing albums of all time for me. And this is such an amazing period of the Beatles. Getting into psychedelic music. This is I've heard considered probably the greatest psychedelic album of all time. Definitely has some amazing psychedelic music here, amongst other things. But yeah, this is such a complete album where pretty much every song I think is absolutely amazing. Some of their best work put on this album. I'm so excited to talk about it. So let's get into it on Jason the Old Millennial. Hello everybody, hope everybody's doing well here on a Monday afternoon. And yeah, I'm excited talking about my favorite album of all time, Revolver. I know many of you know me, you probably know this is my favorite album. I'm not afraid to talk about it. Not shy about talking about it being my favorite. Yeah, for a while, Rubber Soul was actually my favorite album, probably in my teens into my 20s. And somewhere in my 20s, I was kind of going back and forth between Rubber Soul and Revolver. I went to Revolver just because I remember listening to this album one time. Probably back in 2009, a lot of my opinions kind of changed around there because they started putting out the remasters. In 2009, they did a remaster of all the albums, whatever. And I had all the CDs at the time. I don't have them anymore, unfortunately. I wish I would have kept a hold of them. But I had all the albums remastered on CD back in 2009. In fact, that's the first time I really started buying Beatles albums. Because before I had like iTunes or something like that I can listen to. But I remember listening to those albums when I bought them back then. And I remember getting Revolver and just being absolutely, every song was like amazing. I was like into every song, like, wow, that sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. And after a while, I was like, wow, this has to be the best album of all time. And I kind of felt that way probably since since about 2009. So we'll say I was in my late 20s or so at that point. I would say, yeah. So about around there, this kind of became my favorite album. And it's such an amazing album. I mean, you have, like I said, some great psychedelic music coming in here. This is kind of the beginning of psychedelic music, 1966. But you have some great ballads here as well. You have some great rock songs. Some of the best rock songs that they've ever made came on this album, in my opinion. And they also have a children's sing-along song, Yell Submarine. So you got a little bit of everything here, I feel like, and that's why I love the album. Also, really cool album art. I do love this album cover, by their friend Klaus Vormann, whatever, their friend from Hamburg, who was an artist. Mostly, I like the black and white drawings of the 4 Beatles there. There's a little too much going on here, but still, I love this album cover too. It's one of my favorite. We'll talk a little bit about the backstory, of course, of this album. Coming in '66, they just came out with Rubber Soul, which is absolutely groundbreaking album. In my opinion, like I said, one of the most important albums in rock history that really changed the course of rock and roll to mainstream, and a lot of people influenced by them, including Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys, you know, all that. And after that, we got just absolutely amazing album after amazing album. I mean, 65 to like 72 is the greatest period of music probably ever created, in my opinion. As far as albums, the greatest albums ever put together in that period, I would say. As you've seen in my list, I have tons of albums in that period of time. But anyways, uh, you might go. We can even go to like 75, 1965 to 75, greatest decade of music. Anyways, so coming into this, they were still doing some touring, though they were kind of really winding down. They were kind of not enjoying touring anymore. A lot of problems happened at this time period, I think. I want to say it was around this time period. I didn't look this up, so I'm going off of memory, but I know at one point, we had the whole John Lennon saying Beatles are bigger than Jesus, which he said to a BBC, I think, reporter or something like that, or someone from Britain. It was like some reporter. It was like not that big of a deal, really. No one in Great Britain made anything of it. It was just, and he didn't mean anything big by it. It's just something he said in an interview. He wasn't trying to make a big statement about anything, I don't think. He was just asking about, the popularity of the Beatles, and that the fact that the Beatles are so popular, they're more popular than Jesus, what he's saying. Not better than Jesus, but more popular than Jesus. But then some American, I think, found this interview out, took it out of context, and then started, reporting about Jesus. John thinks Beatles are better than Jesus, basically, with the statement, and it kind of had a little bit of an outwar, and it's probably mostly the southern part of the United States, which is the Bible Belt. The middle and southern part is kind of where we have the biggest religious population, I would say. And so a lot of them, conservative religious people, heard this and were like, oh, we're going to burn Beatle albums, and so they had, I guess, they took the vinyl and burned them or something like that, which, as Ringo pointed out in the Anthology documentary, that even though they're burning them, that means they're buying the album. So we're still making money, because to burn it, you have to buy it. So it's like, that's fine with us. Burn it, whatever. You're still buying the album. We're still making money off of you. So it's kind of stupid in total. And this happened, I think it was just, I don't know if this was that big of a deal, but it was a little bit of a deal. I mean, it was a big enough deal that the Beatles, probably Brian Epstein, I'm guessing, or, told John that he needs to publicly apologize for it. And John didn't really want to apologize for it. He didn't feel like he said anything wrong, but he was pressured, and so he gave in, and they did a press conference, and he kind of, explained what he meant by the Beatles are bigger than Jesus. He's saying, I'm not saying they're better than Jesus. I'm just saying they're more popular. Anyway, so he had the whole, and he said he's sorry for it. Anyways, so he had the whole deal. So that kind of irked, I think, John a lot, to be like, man, I don't really care about, everything's taken out of is overblown, and all that, and taken out of context. And also, there was a feeling at the time that, the Beatles' lives were in danger, being on tour. Obviously, we had the JFK assassination in '63. And then this was before we had some more assassinations with Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy. So more assassinations to come later on. But we definitely was a little paranoid. I think the Beatles were a little paranoid, being out in the open sometimes. Ringo's talked about when he's on the drum set and he's kind of above everybody, he can look and he kind of see where people could snipe him. And so he said he kind of hid behind his cymbals. Hopefully they would hide him so he wouldn't get shot or something. But so there was a little paranoia, I think, for the Beatles at that time. Also, they felt like they weren't, the audience wasn't really listening to them, because the girls were just screaming, and it felt like, oh, the girls aren't really listening to us play. They're just screaming and all this, and it's not that fun. We can't hear ourselves sometimes, and they felt like they weren't playing very well, because they couldn't hear themselves play very well, and they felt like their playing ability was, not doing very well. Ringo again said that, yeah, they were crap, if I can say. He said another word, but he basically said their playing was crap at that time because of this. So they weren't enjoying, also obviously not enjoying the traveling, probably. Paranoia, not enjoying playing in front of screaming crowds as much anymore. Also, one of the biggest things that happened was on their tour, they went to Asia, and they went to Japan, which was fine for the most part, except there were protesters, because they were playing at the Budokan, which was seen as kind of a sacred place, and to have the rock and roll group play at this, the sacred place for the Japanese. There was some protest there, but for the most part, they did 2 shows. It went on pretty well. It's one of their famous concerts. You can find it on YouTube. It's a great concert. The only concert you're going to hear them play, Nowhere Man and If I Need Someone. The only times I know that I've heard them play those live. Because like I said, besides that, they don't play any of their stuff from Rubber Soul live, and they don't play any music from Revolver live. They'll never play any of this. They never had played any of this music live, and we'll get to that. But anyways, so they went to Japan, and it was fine. But then the big problem was going to the Philippines, which is, of course, anytime you go to a third world country, you're going to have some problems or potential problems. And so I don't know if they had gone to a third world country before. This may be the first time, and that's where they had a lot of issues. The Philippines was their leader named Marco, I think. I don't know if he was pretty much like a dictator, I believe, of the Philippines at that time. And his wife, who was kind of a darling of the media in the Philippines, who owned thousands of shoes. She was like really big on shoes. Of course, the people were poor, starving, all that kind of stuff. But of course, the president's wife, whatever, leader's wife, had like 1,000 shoes or something like that. So obviously there was some not good things there, not good leadership as mostly third world countries are. And so they came to the Philippines, they played a show, and then I said Marco, or his wife, invited them to dinner like the next day, and the Beatles, as Paul says in the anthology, says that well, it's our day off, and we really wanted a day off, or we didn't do anything, I guess, and so we declined the dinner invitation, not thinking anything of it, that it was in the right to decline, I guess, because like I said, they felt like they deserved a day off. But the problem is, it's a third world country, you got a dictator, you really shouldn't decline offers like that, or you might get in trouble, which they now found out afterwards. Because then the next day they see on TV, Marco's wife, whatever, has this whole table, and the Beatles supposed to be there, but there's no Beatles. They didn't show up, and there's kids that are crying, and she really made this big dramatic ordeal where she talked. There's a camera and a reporter or something like that, and she's said, oh, I'm so disappointed the Beatles did not show up to my dinner invitation. It made it sound like, they just didn't show up, and it's very, rude to the leader of the country. So of course the people of the country are getting, obviously manipulated by the leader, and they're upset, like, oh my gosh, the Beatles disrespected our leader, and they all got upset. And of course the Beatles saw this on TV and like, what the heck is going on here? And Brian Epstein was like, let's get the heck out. Let's pack your stuff, get in our cars. We're getting to the airport. We're getting the heck out of here, because they can kind of see something bad's going to happen. There's obviously going to be some violent protests or something like that, and their lives were in danger. So they're like, oh my God. So they got in the cars. Stuff like the hotel wouldn't help them at all. They couldn't get a police escort out. They got one like when they came, but they couldn't, of course, the police wouldn't escort them out. So they rushed up to the airport. There was protesters there, and they were getting pushed around by somebody. People were there pushing them around as they're going into the airport. And so they were really scared for their lives. Like, this might be the end. I mean, it was a very scary moment for all of them that were there, but they got in the plane, got out of there, and they pretty much was like, we're never going back to the Philippines. Ringo said at the time, I've never been back since that moment. Of course, that was 30 years ago, but I have a feeling Ringo probably never went back to visit the country after that horrible experience that they had. Anyways, and they were pretty mad about that. And I think that really helped them, or played into like, you know what? I'm kind of tired of touring. It's not fun. We'd rather spend more time in the studio, be more creative, and all this, and then spend our time touring, and it doesn't seem to really pay off. Anyway, so they ended up doing their last concert at Candlestick Park in California, I believe. And they didn't say it was the last concert, but after the concert, they basically kind of looked at each other like they kind of knew that this was the last time they would probably do a concert, basically. And it ended up being true. They never did another concert, not counting the rooftop concert in London for a short period. But anyways, so that was kind of the end of that. So that all came up to coming up with this album. Like I said, this is definitely the most experimental album up to this point. like I said, Rubber Soul, they were kind of seeing a change in the way their sound was. It's getting a little heavier in the guitars and even the drums, I think. It's getting a little more, it's a little more rocking. Some of the rocker songs are getting a little more heavier, and all that. Their songwriting is definitely expanding to different subject matters that weren't done before. You know, they're, to me, just as a group, they were just evolving, I suppose, with the times, but just as a band, they were just, you know, which makes the Beatles so great is that they didn't stay the same. They kept changing and evolving with the times, and also innovating, you know, for that time period as well. And that's where we come up with this album, which I guess I love this album because it's like we're changing from the early Beatles. We're in this mid Beatles period, of course, and it's definitely, like I said, there's most creative time period, most innovative, most experimental, while still having those great Beatle melodies and harmonies. You know, they still feel like a group. I feel like sometime, you know, especially when you get to the White Album, it definitely feels like when you get to the White Album in '68, about 2 years later, they definitely feel like not a group anymore. They feel like individuals that, you know, came together and made their individual songs. And I don't know, but you can say it's Sgt. Pepper's too, but I don't know, it feels like was the culmination of, you know, the Beatles still being together. It feels like they're starting to fragment off after this album a little bit more, in my opinion. Especially when you get to the White Album. That's especially when you really feel like they're starting to fall apart as a band. So I do love that they're still got that great Beatles sound that you always love, but they're also changing and throwing a lot of different stuff here that I love. But yeah, so that's why I love about this album, because these are songs that they definitely were like put a lot more time into it. Like I said, they put a lot more sound effects into songs. They definitely came up with different ideas on how to do songs and what to put in there. Use, you know, different stuff like the orchestra or horns and stuff like that. They threw a lot in here. Yeah, they threw about it. This is like the White Album is really the experimental album, but this is kind of definitely the first like super experimental album I feel like they did, where they threw a lot of crazy stuff together, and it all worked well for them. But yeah, because none of these songs were ever played live, and I think that was intentional. That they're like, because before it was like, we're gonna write songs that we can play live in front of people, and we're obviously gonna write songs to women, like, because girls were the big part of the audience, like screaming girls, and so that's why they wrote the "She Loves You" and "I Want to Hold Your Hand" and all that, "For Me to You," you know, definitely very personal. And so they're like, okay, we're gonna go away from all of that. We're gonna do stuff that only can be done in the studio. We're just going to be as creative as heck, you know, and that's what you see here. But let's go talk about the album itself that they put together. One of the cool things is George Harrison gets 3 absolutely amazing songs on the album. And man, he's grown so much as a songwriter, from "Don't Bother Me," from with the Beatles back in '63 or whatever, or '64, I guess, or '60, yeah, around there. And then him getting better with Help, with "If I Need You," and then Rubber Soul, "If I Need Someone." I mean, definitely getting better, I think, as a songwriter and all that. And all 3 songs are amazing. We start with "Taxman," which is an absolutely amazing song. First time I think Harrison has opened an album with this song. One of his best songs. And I love it because it's George Harrison, I think, has the best sense of humor in the band in some senses. And this is definitely, I think, uses his sense of humor of like, it's a meta, it's a, you know, not meta, but it's a, you know, a song, it's a satirical song written from the viewpoint of a tax man, and kind of viewing the tax man as evil, which I agree. I hate the tax man. Taxes are horrible. So I think we all can get around, you know, this idea of a tax man being a horrible person. And Harrison wrote it because they were being taxed to death because they're rich. Of course, the richer you are, the more taxes you're going to pay. And England was really bad, and probably still to this day, it was like 95% tax or something like that. It's just the crazy taxes that they do over there, even more than the United States, I think, which I hate the taxes here as well. So it's kind of humorous, but yet it has some of the best guitar work. That guitar riff is amazing. Bum, bum, ba-dum, dum, bum, bum, bam, ba, bum. It's just a great guitar riff that goes through. At first, it's like a bass riff, and then the guitar doubles it. I love that. And then we get one of the greatest guitar solos, which is by Paul McCartney, not George Harrison, which proves Paul McCartney to be one of the greatest guitar players in my opinion, underrated. That guitar solo, oh my gosh. I mean, I don't know how he does it. I haven't tried it before. I always thought about trying it, but it seems like a really difficult solo, but it is a rocking solo. This is the best rock song they've done at this point. Like I said, last album, Rubber Soul, I thought Drive My Car was the best rock song up to that point. Taxman, I think even better, is incredible. The guitars is just super heavy, super cool, good guitar solo. Just a really cool vibe. So good. Then we go into one of the greatest, more ballads that they've ever done, Eleanor Rigby, McCartney does. And this is such a cool, it's one of the best written songs, first of all. Second of all, it's unique because there's only orchestra. It's the only time I've seen this with the Beatles is it's mostly Paul singing with an orchestra. There's no guitar, bass, or drums in the whole song, which I didn't really think about that until like recently when I was listening to it and going, wow, that's such a, again, even a song like this has a very experimental idea or very creative idea to write a song with only orchestra, which they haven't done before. And the orchestra music is so beautiful. The violins, the cellos, oh my gosh. I love a good orchestra, and this is probably my favorite use of orchestra in a song. It really makes the song great, in my opinion. Besides, Paul just being amazing, and oh, look at all the lonely people. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, his vocal's great. You got the great harmonies in the chorus, and the writing. I love the songwriting of stuff like she keeps her face on a jar by the door, meaning her makeup, and the priest that is writing a sermon that no one will hear. And then he goes and does the sermon at the funeral, and it says nobody was saved, meaning nobody was there to hear the gospel message. Oh, just amazing songwriting, in my opinion. So Eleanor Rigby. And then you got I'm Only Sleeping, a song about kind of being lazy and not wanting to get up out of bed, which John was known to do, I guess. Great John song. It's like, how do you make an amazing song just about not wanting to wake up and only wanting to sleep and then want people to leave you alone? But man, it's just his vocal work is great. I love the acoustic guitar here. The bass is great. The bass kind of transition, dun 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 dun, with the yawn and everything is great. We get some psychedelic here with some backwards guitar. First time I think we've heard a backwards guitar in a Beatles song, and I love it. It's funny. It doesn't seem like a real psychedelic song, but then he threw in those backward guitars, which is such a creative idea. I don't know if it's been done by anybody else. The Beatles came up with that. Maybe not, but they definitely took it from somewhere and really made it work on the song. I just love the please don't wake me, don't shake me, leave me where I am, I'm only sleeping. Oh, great lines anyways, but yeah, amazing song, I'm Only Sleeping. Love You Too, another Harrison song. This is like the only song where it's Harrison, and I usually don't like when his Indian influences. This is maybe the only song that I really like where he uses the sitar as the main instrument. But it's like a Indian rock song. I mean, the sitar uses like a rock instrument I've never heard before, but it is a rocking song. I love how the beginning of the intro is so great. How it's just the sitar, and it he's kind of doing some sitar like guitar licks, and then it slows down, bum 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 bum, dun 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 dun. All of a sudden, all the other instruments come in. It's like, wow, it's a rock song. Like. I actually think it's an amazing song by Harrison, very unique. I've never heard anybody else do before. Love You Too, very underrated song. And then you get Here, There, and Everywhere. I think the greatest love song the Beatles ever came up with, and one of the greatest love songs Paul McCartney's ever written. Again, here, all these great rock numbers, and then Paul comes up with this incredible ballad, with incredible harmonies again, and just a great title. Saying you love someone so much you want them here, there, and you want them everywhere. You could just say everywhere, but I love that Here, There, and Everywhere. Just really cool title. And yeah, just an amazing love song from Paul McCartney. And then you get Yellow Submarine. And this is a divisive song. I know some are going to say, oh, it's just a silly kid song. Doesn't belong on here. I've heard some people say it's their least favorite Beatles song. I actually quite like it. It's very unique. I think Ringo's voice is used very well. Like I said, Ringo's got limited vocal ability, and sometimes Lennon and McCartney would write the perfect song for his voice, and this is one of those where his voice works really well here. It's a fun song. It's a fun sing-along song. I have a lot of fun with it. I love when they throw in all the captain, captain, and all the different instruments. And John's, doing the all we need, yeehaw, whatever, all his voice work. It seemed like they had a lot of fun with this song, and I actually quite enjoy it. And like I said, it's very catchy. We all live in EL. Oh, super catchy. And then we end with She Said, She Said. Another underrated, I think, incredible rock song. That rock riff at the beginning, absolutely amazing. And she said, I know what it's like to be dead. Great line. First line, I know what it's like to be dead. Amazing. You're like, what? What does that mean? In the whole story, I won't get to it here, but there's a cool story behind that. But anyways, and she makes me feel like I've never been born. I mean, oh, so amazing. Really great rock song in that side. And then side two, we get Good Day Sunshine. I think another Divisive song. I actually quite enjoy it. It's very poppy, very upbeat, Paul McCartney song. I do love just the Good Day Sunshine, like the harmonies there. Dun 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 dun, Good Day Sunshine. I think it's really good. Some would say it's more of his granny songs, I guess, but I don't know. It's an enjoyable song. Like I said, I love the chorus here. It's probably one of my least favorite songs on here, but still a really good song. And Your Bird Can Sing, a very underrated song. One of my favorite songs, actually. One of my favorite rock songs from the Beatles. I feel like it's not talked about hardly at all. It's not very long, but it's got one of the greatest rock riffs, I think. That goes throughout the song. Really, it's two guitars too. I love that. It's two guitars playing that riff together. It sounds amazing. And again, there's still some great harmonies here. And it's just a fun, catchy song. Love this song, And Your Bird Can Sing. Then we get another great ballad from McCartney, For No One. Very haunting song about, a relationship breaking apart. And he was breaking apart with Jane Asher at this time. They're going to be breaking up here. And they were together for a long time. They were engaged. He wrote a lot of songs about her, both good and bad. And this is kind of towards bad. And again, just great songwriting. No sign of love behind the tears, cried for no one, a love that should have lasted years. Man, just some of the best songwriting Paul's ever done. And musically, just amazing song. Definitely you feel that mood of despair in the song that I love. But yeah, great. Dr. Robert, another underrated song. People always say this is the worst song on the album. I actually kind of like it. It's got a good rock riff to it. I love the chorus. Well, 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 you're feeling fine. Very interesting how they change up with that ringing guitar, and then it goes back to Dr. Robert. And it's a fun song. I really like Dr. Robert. I want to tell you an underrated song from Harrison. Very catchy, good guitar work here. I believe it's the only song that Paul McCartney did not play on with the Beatles. I think there was a fight in the studio and Paul McCartney left and they finished the song, or they did the song without him, if I remember right. But again, Harrison doing just great work here. Really nice, catchy song. Then you got To Get You Into My Life, another McCartney song. Again, not one of my favorites, but still a decent song. Some good horn work, good McCartney vocals. He really belts it out here. Got to get you into my life. Great horns. And some good guitar work too as well on here. And again, McCartney's belting out is so great. And then we end with one of probably my favorite psychedelic song of all time, Tomorrow Never Knows. Absolutely groundbreaking, out there song. Anytime someone's new to the Beatles and I'm like, listen to Tomorrow Never Knows, it blows their mind. They're like, what? Even by today's standards, the song is just mind-blowing, I think, and never heard anything like it before or after. They definitely, again, this is the most experimental song they've ever done. Feels like a song that they would do on the White Album, but I love that about this, and really makes this a psychedelic album, I think, because of the song is why you think of it that way. Though most of them are just good rock songs and good ballads and all that. But Tomorrow Never Knows, that voice that they do something to his voice, it's just one chord over and over, basically. And then you have all these crazy sound effects. That's what makes a song. And backwards guitars, the sound effects thrown in. They just threw a lot of stuff in, and it made it sound so cool. And that drum beat, and again, what makes it that drum beat, boom, 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 whatever, throughout that constant drum beat that goes throughout it, and just John singing these nonsensical lyrics, basically, just sounds so cool. Such an amazing psychedelic rock song to end the album. This is my favorite opener closer to any album they've done, probably the best opener closer to any album ever, outside of like Who's Next I can think of, and maybe in some stuff like that. But yeah, it really closes out on a cool way, and I'm sure people at the time were like, what are we listening to? This is mind-blowing. But yeah, every song, absolutely amazing. Absolutely love this album. Revolver, probably always be my number one. It's hard to see an album getting better than that for me. Yeah, so amazing. Well, I've talked a lot about the album, and it's hard to do a top three. I'll do a top three, though. I didn't even talk about this. Is their seventh studio album. And their single was Eleanor Rigby, Yellow Submarine, which went number 11 in the U.S. The album, of course, went number 1 in the U.S. and U.K., as all the albums do. They also had a single come out that went number 1, which was Paperback Writer and Rain, which I believe was the double A side, which is amazing too. I mean, Paperback Writer and Rain are amazing songs on their own, and weren't even on this album. If they put those on this album, I mean, it's already my favorite album of all time, but man, those albums, and Rain is pretty psychedelic as well. It kind of helped that psychedelic era for them, I think, as well. But yeah, it's so hard to put a top 3 together. I mean, like I said, there's so many amazing songs to get in this top 3, but for me, right now, my third favorite song in here is actually Anya Burke Can Sing. Like I said, I just love the rock riff throughout it's a short but sweet song, great harmonies in it. But yeah, the guitar is just amazing in that song. Number 2, I went with Here, There, and Everywhere. I think it was like in my top 15 favorite Beatles songs of all time. It's just an amazing, like I said, amazing ballad. Just a really sweet song. Great song for a wedding, I think. Here, There, and Everywhere. And then number 1 for me is Eleanor Rigby. Like I said, it's some of the best songwriting, and I love the orchestra music and the harmonies there, and just that chorus, just great. Yeah, it's just, to me, I think it was like number 11 or 12, my 11th or 12th favorite. It just barely missed out on my top 10 favorite Beatles songs. Yeah, none of these songs made it in my top 10, but a lot of them were in like my top 20, top 15 favorite Beatles songs, all on this album, which is why it's my favorite album of all time. Yes, so this is the end of my list, my 100 favorite albums. My list has changed quite a bit, so now, I don't know, I won't do it right away, but I'm sure in the near future I might have to do this list again, because it's so many other albums I love to talk about that I love that didn't make it in my list, and now I think will be in my list. So I'll probably do another top 100 or top 200 albums in the near future, in fact, but I'll do it quicker than this one. This one took me way too long. It took me 3 years to put this list, or put these videos together, because I did one every couple of weeks or whatever. But it was fun going through all these albums. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, to my number 1. Hope you enjoy my number 1. You agree that this is a great album, hopefully, if not the best album, like I think. But hopefully you enjoyed this, me talking about my favorite album here, Revolver by the Beatles. Yeah, and just thank you everybody that's watched this whole series. Thank you for watching this video and commenting. I really appreciate the comments in all these videos. And yeah, please comment. Tell me what you think about Revolver and being number 1 and all that. Yeah, and just thank you for anybody who liked the video. Really appreciate that. Helps the video out, helps me out. I'm getting close to 300. Hopefully I can get to 300 this year. 300 subscribers would be great. It would be a blessing to me. Anyways, and yeah, and just thank you to all my subscribers. Like I said, all 294 of you. Really appreciate you guys subscribing to the channel, listening to or watching my videos, commenting or whatever. I love to talk back and forth with people who comment. Always want to acknowledge the commenters. I always enjoy that. Part of being a YouTuber is meeting new people and making friends and talking about music and movies that I love to talk about anyways. But yeah, so yeah, thank you to all of you for subscribing. I really appreciate that down the deepest of my hearts. Anyway, so besides that, that's me talking about my favorite album of all time, closing out this really long series, and hope you all have a great day.